Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to week 5 of Relate. We're over the halfway point now, so celebrating and appreciating all of you making the time to, continue to be here on a weekly basis. And to those on the recording, just also extending that for, creating that time for yourselves. So we're going to drop in with a little moment to take a breath together and drop in meditation. So get yourselves comfortable, closing down the eyes or lowering the gaze. If you can get both feet on the ground, both hands on your legs, and do so. If there's something that's more comfortable for you, then choosing that instead. And as you land into yourself through the breath, just noticing how the body feels. Are you at ease? Or are there places within you that are in physical discomfort? And not needing to change anything, but simply being with it. Sometimes when we experience pain or discomfort, we immediately want to fix it or change it or ignore it. And the invitation here is simply to be with it. Doing a little check in of the emotional body. What energy is in motion for you? How are you feeling in yourself? And let's do a little check in with the eyes closed of the external space around you. Is there anything that you hear, anything that you feel, maybe a breeze or some noises? What do you notice in this moment around you? Wriggling the toes, giving the fingers a little movement, having some movement into the body, perhaps a little stretch. Prepare to settle in for the next hour and a half together. And when you're ready, returning to shared space on the screen. Lovely. Welcome, everybody. We've almost a full house, which is nice. Great. So I'm wondering, on the back of last week's exploration around the nervous system, did any of you notice during the week, were you able to catch those moments when there was a shift in your nervous system state? Or was there a moment when you reflected and was like, oh, something happened now and I'm not feeling as grounded as I was before this interaction or whatever it is? I'm wondering if any of you, with what we covered and bringing in the awareness of the different states, if there was anything that you noticed as a follow on from that during your week. You can just pop it in the chat or you can unmute, whichever works for you. So the first thing we're going to do on today's call, and feel free to, if you're going to drop in a response to that, please work away. Okay, great. I'm reading a comment here. Yes, notice feeling anxious when someone didn't reply to me for ages. Okay, great. And what did you do with that? Is the next question. Was there, yeah, even just noticing it is huge. And yeah, I'm wondering, was there any tools or anything that you used to calm yourself? How did you hold yourself through that? Okay, another comment. I found my nervous system was activated and it was a living wound related to the past, not the present. Yes. Yeah, we're going to get into triggers next week. And yeah, this is very common with a trigger. That's something that it's not really about what's happening in the moment, but it's triggering something else. And then the nervous system can get out of regulation with that. Okay, so yeah, the tool was noticing it in the body and then deep breathing, also reminding myself I am okay. Yeah, beautiful. It's, that's a really great way to deal with it. So yeah, we're going to jump straight into a practice. And yeah, it's being here with you, which we did last week already. I have going to pin Ryan. That we're on shared screen. Hello. You need to unmute. Hello. So yeah, we're just going to do a short demo just to remind you. There are two prompts with this. The first is being here with you, and the second is hearing that I notice. So being here with you, I notice, and hearing that I notice. I'm going to pop it into the chat here, um, so that if you need to, you can write it down for when you're in the breakout rooms. And it just continues like that, hearing that I notice. So arriving, just taking a moment to land in together and take a breath. Yeah, so being here with you, I notice I feel gratitude for you taking the time and the effort now to turn up this evening. And yeah, when I feel that, I experience it as a warm sensation in the middle of my chest.
Hmm. Yeah, hearing that, I feel a great sense of appreciation for being on this call.
Mm.
And I also feel a great sense of gratitude for inviting me to be part of this call.
Mm. Yeah, hearing that, I'm really grateful for sharing with you authentically how it is for me, how my experience is to have you present,
Mm.
and yeah, really tapping into that's how authenticity supports us.
Mm. Yeah, and hearing that, yeah, I feel a sense that is, yeah, trying to remain present if I'm feeling a little bit tired.
Mm.
And yeah, the excitement feels mixed in the body with a bit of tiredness.
Mm. Yeah, hearing that, I connect to some tiredness that I felt in my body when we were dropping in with the meditation.
Mm.
And yeah, it feels like it's underneath the energy lingering there.
Yeah. Hearing that, I'm curious if the very warm the days that we had has a part to play in that, or is there something, yeah, something a little bit deeper?
Yeah, when I was doing my inquiry, in the meditation, what I noticed was that because we ate before this call, which I don't always do, that I could feel like a drain from my digestion now. Mm.
Yeah, and hearing that is very helpful because it helps connect to why I'm tired as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I can see how eating just before fall is not very supportive,
Mm.
energized.
Hearing that, I want to counter that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to hear what is because we moved into, as I shared with you, around sharing impact. I would love to know how you feel now at the end of that short practice in comparison to how you felt before we started.
Yeah, I feel a lot more energized.
Mm.
And yeah, I feel a greater level of understanding of, yeah, of where you are coming on this call.
Yeah, and for me, I feel a deeper connection.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's just space to share, even though what we've shared here hasn't been like incredibly deep. Sometimes we use this practice when there's like stuff to be alive. This was become I love this very um complimentary photo of me. That is my default there. Okay, let me see what's happening here. My recording is still on. The video has not caught up. Okay, so how was that? Was that any more comfortable now you were doing that practice for the second time? Did it feel easier to connect to what was alive in the moment for you?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Are we going to
You can
talk?
work away. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. I found that a lovely practice. I was with Tanya, and I thought it was it was heartening and freeing, and there was so much permission just to be who I was in the moment. And I
Mm,
felt it was quite a new experience.
lovely. Thank you, Romy. Mm. I'm going to read out a few comments here. So felt very, very liberating and connecting on a deep level. Yeah, beautiful. It felt very supportive, helped me calm down. Great. And yeah, we talked about that last week, like the co-regulation, how coming into connection can in this way can be really supportive. And yes, I found it easier and it really helped keep me anchored in the present moment. I love how simple it is, but yeah, powerful. Yeah, me too. Like I shared, like this is just one of my all-time favorite practices and it's so simple and yeah, it's like the gift that just keeps on giving in loads of different situations, as well as the skill that it's helped me to cultivate, which is to actually be present with myself in a given moment, especially if I'm like feeling a little bit stressed or upset about something, that I can come back with like, okay, what's actually happening for me physically, emotionally, all of that. Great. So we're going to do a little bit of relationship mapping and pattern recognition, you could call it. So I know there's a couple of people who have done this with me before, but I suggest you just jump right in if you've already done this with me or with anybody else, because this is the type of thing where, yeah, sometimes when you revisit, you can also find new areas become illuminated. And yeah, I invited you to bring your pen and paper because there's going to be lots of journaling. Um, and yeah, let's get cracking. So I'm going to share my screen. What to do here first. Okay. And doing a few bits around here. Do you know what I actually find with this presenting is that it's easier. I think that, and you can let me know what you think. I actually think we can, on my end, I can see it better when I share my full screen like that and I zoom in rather than when I go into present mode. Is everybody able to really read this? Yeah, great. Okay. So, yeah, sorry, we're on the wrong page now here. Hopefully we started where we started. Okay, so we're beginning to examine beliefs around love and relationships. So we've already begun this in the very first week when we looked at what we have learned about love and relationships from our primary caregivers or where we grew up. But we're going to go a little bit deeper because this isn't what we looked at then was what have I learned? And this is more what do I believe? And so we're just going to go with the first sentence, which is write down the beliefs you hold about love, intimacy, and yourself in relationships. For example, love requires sacrifice, or I'm not good enough for a lasting relationship, or it's challenging to meet people. So we're going to take, I'm going to time these, we're going, because there's quite a few questions that I want to run through. We're going to just take 2 minutes now to just focus on that one question. What beliefs do you hold about love, intimacy, and yourself in relationships? Like another one could be intimacy, it's just sex, and men always want it, but they don't ever love me. Something like this, anything. And we'll give that 2 minutes. Okay. So, I'm trying to find the sweet spot here between giving enough that you can just jot down the few things that are coming to mind and, also that we can get through the content, sorry. This isn't, just for now. Like these questions are also for you to be pondering on during the week because you'd be amazed what comes out when you're just like out walking your dog or, these are questions for you to carry now through the week. So challenge these beliefs by asking, is this true? So with each point that you've made now, begin to go one by one. Love requires sacrifice. Is this true? Where did I learn this? And how is it impacting my relationships now? So, is this true? You might say, I have experienced this, but it's not a full truth. Where did I learn this? I heard somebody saying this a lot, or my ex-partner used to tell me this, or I'm not sure where I learned it, but it's definitely there. How is it impacting my relationships now? Well, it's inhibiting me from showing up fully. So you're just beginning to ask yourself those three questions around each point that you have written down, and we're going to give another 2 minutes. Okay, so taking a breath. Yeah, in here around examining beliefs, I have a piece of on ambivalence. And the definition of ambivalence is simultaneous or contradictory attitudes or feelings, such as attraction and repulsion, towards an object, person, or action. And yeah, I first came across ambivalence, in a book around dating. And it was a very, very interesting exploration. And her point was when you are single, and I think everybody on this call, besides from Ryan and myself, are single. When you are single and you are looking for a relationship, are there also ways in which you don't want a relationship? And what are these, where does this ambivalence show up in your life? So an example when I began to explore this in myself, an example was that I deeply wanted a partner and a relationship and felt that. I really felt that in myself. And yet, as I was walking my son to the school bus one day in the middle of doing a lot of journaling around ambivalence, I realized that there were ways in which I felt mixed about it. And it was what came up for me just on that walk to school was really around um yeah, there was a few things. I'm going to speak very honestly here. The first was around it being no longer my son and myself, just the two of us. And, in that moment, really appreciating like our dynamic and there being a shift in that and having, yeah, a little bit of mixed feelings around that. I was also just wearing like my super comfy tracksuit and messy hoodie with paint on it and being like, wow, I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to like be this full expression of myself with like unbrushed hair and messy clothes. And will somebody really love me when they see me in all of me like this, not just, wearing nice clothes and makeup and dressed up and, the date version of Sinead, but the deeper relationship version of Sinead, who turns up in all her seasons. And yeah, the last piece was also around parenting in that moment, and it was around a feeling of shame and around being seen in also the more challenging moments on my parenting journey and feeling like, oh my God, somebody would actually witness me in this, like not just the parts of me where people say, oh, you're such a good parent and aren't you doing such a good job? You just sound so lovely, but to be like, wow, Sinead, you could really, not that anybody says that to me, but you could really improve on your parenting in these places, the places where I see that. It's like having another person reflecting that back to me. And yeah, that was in that moment, I really understood how ambivalence exists or existed then on my journey of being like, I would love a partner in a healthy relationship and to be in a beautiful family dynamic. That was true, but also all of this other stuff was true. And you begin to get into a little bit of parts work where things aren't black and white. It's not one or the other. We can actually hold both truths. And yeah, I'm going to give 2 minutes now, again, for another little bit of journaling for you to explore, are there areas where ambivalence is turning up around a desire for love and relationship? Or if you don't have a desire for love and relationship, flipping it the other way. Is there a part of you that does desire that, even though you're telling yourself not? So just beginning to look at how, yeah, how these contradictions almost can coexist. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the questions here that feel unfinished to you, I do recommend that at the end of the call, if you have time to take another 15 minutes, maybe in the morning when you get up, taking another 15 minutes, and it doesn't have to be this huge chunk of time, but it's just questions to keep revisiting and expanding. And I really am a big believer on intention. And when we carry intentions of explorations like this with us, and we're asking these questions, and we ask into the unseen forces that are around us to help us to see and to understand that the answers can come also, as I said, when you're out walking or during the week. Um, so yeah, stay open to the exploration beyond the limited time that we're giving to it here on this call. So okay, so there's another tree prompt from the call that you can do yourself at home. Everything I'm sharing here in the screen share is going to be on your PDF as well. This is a screen share version of your PDF. So, mapping out your relationship history. We're going to begin with the type. I've talked about the type many times, so maybe you have or have not heard of this before. But yeah, the first question I'm going to ask is, do you have a type? And please drop into the chat. You don't need to tell me all about your type. You can just say, yes, I have a type. No, I don't have a type. I don't think I have a type, but maybe I have a type. Um, yeah, just let me know. Okay, yes. I'm not sure. Yes. Yeah, and to the I'm not sure, I think I'd love to check in. Let's check in at the end of the call and see if it's become any clearer. Okay, so the type is, yeah, it means that you're drawn to a similar type of person. And this can be body shape, it can be energy. And by body shape, I just mean like it can be physical, it can be looks, right? It can be an energy, quality. Usually it's around what somebody reflects or triggers in us. So, along with the question of, do you have a type? The next question is it healthy? And yeah, I remember when I was initially single, you know, whatever that is now, 8 years ago, and reading a quote that was something along the lines of, if you have a type and you keep finding yourself in unhealthy relationships or relationships that don't work out, try going for somebody who's not your type. And that was just the most fantastic piece of advice because it really opened me up. At that moment in my life, I was just dating for the enjoyment of dating and meeting people. Um, and yeah, it really opened me up to meeting some super interesting people that I normally would never have had a date with because, yeah, they weren't the type that I usually went with. And as I began to explore this concept of having a type and relationship, pattern recognition, we'll say, I began to see that there was a type that I was going for, and also to notice that it was unhealthy. And that was the first step then in being able to make different choices around the people that I would engage with. And there was also definitely a shift in noticing, this person is my type and I feel that attraction, but I'm not going to act on it. I'm going to really, really honor myself because I know it's not good for me. And then some years later, seeing the same person and being like, wow, I am so not attracted to that person anymore. And being able to notice the shift that's happened as a result of my own inner world shift. So, yeah, do you identify as a type? How do you identify it? And is it healthy? I'm seeing a comment here. Um, Yeah, so a past relationship preference, so someone that was taller. So yeah, as it says here, your choice in partner is reflective of your relationship to yourself, your wounds, level of growth, etc. And yeah, through self-awareness and commitment to your own healing journey, this can change and will be directly reflected back to you through your partners. And that should really say through your partner choice. Um, if anybody wants to me to expand on that, let me know. But for me, it's pretty concise. So as we move into exploration, I want to share, this is an invitation to be compassionate. This isn't about being critical of yourself. Oh God, yeah, now I see they were all the same, or they were all a version of my folder, or they were all, why do I keep going for them? It's not about shaming, it's about self-compassion, rather than criticism. And yeah, patterns are not bad. Patterns exist throughout life. Um, but yeah, this is a commitment to exploration for in the name of growth rather than self-punishment. um, and yeah, our relationship patterns have on my own notes. I don't see it here now. Um, I have it's romantic, friendship, and family. So we're going to begin to run through questions, right? All of this is primarily focused around romantic relationships. But when you begin this journey of pattern recognition, then you can begin to see as we look, and we're going to go through this fully, but as we look for themes and patterns, you can see these themes and patterns then show up in different dynamics. So your typical role in relationships, for example, in a friendship, you could be the rescuer all the time, and you're like, wow, I keep choosing these friendships where I'm the rescuer, or where somebody is rescuing me, where I'm, the person who's in distress. Reoccurring challenges and conflicts with family, it might be every time I go for Christmas, there's always an argument with my sister, and one of us ends up leaving early. So you're just beginning to look at what happens in your relationships so that then, we can start to take different actions. So beginning with your significant romantic relationships. So the first question, the first thing to journal is to write down the first names of your significant romantic relationships. And this is not so much about duration, because sometimes people come and do this exploration and they say to me, I haven't had a relationship for 20 years, or I've never had a serious relationship. These are the people who you have been romantically involved with who have impacted you, who've left a lasting impact on you, even if you don't feel in that impact now, still, they have been a significant person in your life. So beginning to write down the names, the first names of those people. And it could be somebody you dated for 3 months, or it could be someone you were married to for 30 years. It really, um, yeah, the time is irrelevant. It's about the impact. And then the first question is, what attracted you to each partner initially? So, yeah, what attracted you to each partner initially? And at this stage, you can just begin to write down, words, and it doesn't need to be an essay, you're just beginning to chart. So once you have identified what attracted you to each partner initially, the next question is what dynamics consistently showed up? For example, communication issues, jealousy, lack of emotional availability. And once you have explored the dynamics, the last question in this section is how did the relationship end and what feelings did it leave you with? So this, could be all my relationships end amicably, in which case you probably wouldn't be on this call. That is a presumption. Or I always break up with them, they always break up with me. Okay, and we're going to take 5 minutes now to run through the identify repeated themes and patterns, and then we're going to go into some breakout rooms. So in identifying repeated themes and patterns, you're looking for the kinds of partners you are drawn to. Emotionally unavailable, nurturing, controlling. With emotionally unavailable, yeah, this is quite a nuanced term. And I would suggest rather than emotionally unavailable and kind of because it's very easy to put that label on somebody, I would suggest that you could delve in a little bit deeper, like, not a strong communicator or had trouble sharing their emotions rather than emotionally unavailable or, still really hung up on their ex, because that could also be emotionally unavailable. So delving into a little bit more detail rather than the just lashing on the label of emotionally unavailable. So the kinds of partners you are drawn to, your typical role in relationships. In each of these significant relationships that you are mapping out, what is the trend? Is there a trend? There will absolutely be trends. It's about beginning to see them. Um, avoidant is in there. And sorry, as I'm rereading through this, because I had used this or prepared this previously. Now, when I look at the avoidant, I probably wouldn't put that in there because we've already covered, well, I suppose it's good because it is there around the attachment, your typical role. And yeah, to name what you were feeling in your attachment style, what was most prominent. And then, so your typical role, the kinds of partners you're drawn to, and recurring challenges or conflicts. Is there the same type of challenges and conflicts repeating throughout your relationships? Okay. So what I would love to hear is, are you starting to recognize any patterns? Do you see anything, any reoccurring themes throughout these significant relationships in your life, or, the people who have impacted you? Okay. Theme of being the rescuer. Yes. That's really powerful to see that. It's so, and we're going to, move in. I'm going to do some breakout rooms and then we're going to do a little bit around, the empowerment of this, actually, of just acknowledging that stuff. Yeah, of being the rescuer and the caretaker. Yeah, it's amazing to be able to just see that. Like, this is where then you can start to make choices that are different when you become aware of the patterns and then you start to observe that in future dynamics, and even to see if it's in other areas of your life. Is it with your friends or with your family? And to hold back then from that and make different choices. And sometimes it's different choices in people, but sometimes it's just different choices in what you do, how you act, what happens if you don't step into that role. What does the other person do? And yeah, then this exercise is the most powerful so far for me. Okay, great. I'm delighted to hear that. So another comment, yes, see patterns and the roles I have played. Good. Yeah. And fear of honest communication, conflict, rejection led to most of the problems that ended the relationships. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's big. Yeah. Yeah, coming on tonight's call, I wanted to say this is the last like really, really big deep dive for the course, but we are going to do some conflict stuff and some trigger profiling. So, there's a bit of and then, there's the whole module on sacred sexuality. So stuff can also be super deep. Um, so I didn't want to make any promises that could be experienced differently. But yeah, I see this as being a really powerful and empowering exercise. So I'm going to pause the recording. Actually, I'll just share what we're going to do in the breakout rooms. And then for those of you who are listening to the recording, you can journal for what will be covered in the breakout room. So in the breakout room, we're going to ask a question, listen, reflect back what we heard, and then offer impact. So I'm going to bring up the screen share from last week. Let me see where we had cues. Okay, so I'm actually seeing here on my um, cues that I didn't have the impact piece, which is what I wanted to share. So the question is going to be, what has stood out for you the most out of from today, the content today? So what I'm going to write this down. I suggest you do too, in case you need to remember the question. What has stood out the most from today's exploration so far? So when you get on, you can decide who's going to start. So you're going to land in together, take a breath, ask the question. One person's going to ask, the other person's going to respond, and then you will reflect what I heard you say? And the same person then who reflects back what I heard you say, did I get that right? And I'll type in these little cues as we go, but it's good, we're getting to the stage now also where I'm hoping that you know them a little bit. Did I get that right? Did I miss anything? A little bit earlier on, if somebody stalls in their 3 minutes of sharing, you can also ask them because you can ask them, is there more? So we'll do that. We'll give 3 minutes to share and use your full 3 minutes. So if after a minute and a half you're like, I've got nothing more to say, the person who's listening just asks, is there more? So help to prompt the person to go a little bit deeper. And then, yeah, reflect. Did I get that right? Yes, you did. There was a little bit more that you didn't add. And then how that impacted me. When I heard you share about your discovery or your whatever you shared, this is how it impacted me. This is how I felt. So I'm going to type in those little comments to the chat as we go. So I'm just going to read a few comments here. So do you have any tips on active listening? What do you find? Is it that you find it challenging or is it other people?
Well, no, I'll tell you what it is. I'm wondering sometimes when we start, I think it
Hmm.
generally goes okay. But the
Hmm.
thing is, I can say it's almost like I can become self-conscious and say, oh God, I better remember that.
Mm.
And I don't want to write anything down. I want to listen.
Hmm.
I want to actually listen with my heart, is what I want to do. And I mean, I think I tend to remember it, but it doesn't always feel easy. It feels, I just wonder, do you have any tips like focus on the breath or listen or
Yeah, it's a practice. And when I am in that place of active listening and I notice that I feel a panic, and because I often do this as a demonstration as well, or in conflict or a heated moment, I know I find it very challenging then to be present with the active listening. I'm bringing, like in a meditation, if you're doing a meditation on the breath, you're bringing your awareness back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath. I will notice first myself. It's that like being here with myself. I'm noticing that I'm panicking and I'm getting defensive or whatever's going on. It's just like noticing that in myself and then tuning in again to what the other person is hearing. And I suggest just removing the necessity to get it right. just
Hmm.
just be there, you know. And it's okay to totally get it wrong. And it's okay to get to the end and be like, you know what? I was panicking about not being able to remember any of this, and now I remember none of this. Could you give me a synopsis again? Like that is totally fine. And that is what active listening is about. Like, yeah, it's being present and hearing the other person, but we're just showing up authentically and sorry, I started daydreaming about what I was going to make for dinner halfway through, and it's not that I wasn't interested, it's just that I have limited capacity right now. Or this is what I remember, but I know there was more that I don't remember. Can you remind me what that was?
thank you, Sinead. No, that's great advice. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Good. Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? Okay. So, yeah, for those who are listening to the recording on the PDF, there are two parts that we covered that haven't been recorded here, which are acknowledging your part in the patterns and the empowerment on that, and connecting the dots to early life experiences. So, if you are following along with the recording, do have a look at the PDF and get those extra questions. And for those of you who are here now present on the live call, when you have a look at the PDF, there are a few questions early on. There are three questions that we didn't cover now today. but there's also so much in what we did cover. So just keep going and keep building on the foundations that we already started. If you have 5 minutes or 15 minutes now when we finish the call, just be with those questions, expand on them, revisit them, as I said, and continue with the exploration throughout the week. I'm here. If any of you want to drop me a line, you're so welcome to. I heard from a couple of you during the week, and you're so welcome to just drop me a little voice note or a WhatsApp or an email, because I'm also aware that this is, yeah, it's quite deep stuff, deep topics. And please don't feel like you're out there on your own in the world. And I was delighted to see somebody tapping into the support of their pod during the week. That was really beautiful. So I just saw that message today. So it brought me great joy to read that message and hear that you're supporting one another. So thank you so much. This call absolutely flew for me. I don't know how it was for you. And I look forward to next week already. So have a wonderful week, and I'll see you then.